What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers. Joining me here today to talk about the California Golden Bears and their 24 team preview is Jay McLaughlin from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. Jay, how's California going to do this year, my friend?
Yeah, that's
and thank you everyone for watching. No. We'll give them a fair shake. Go ahead, buddy.
That's probably the sound every California fan is making right now. They're number 68 right now, and ranked number 68 in the nation, right? So that just tells you everything you need to know right there. But secondly, I predict maybe 7-5.
Okay.
And that might even be overly optimistic, but I'm gonna give them 7-5. You look at their schedule, Logan. I have a hard schedule. This is not an NC State schedule, right? Or even a North Carolina schedule. I mean, this looks very much like an SEC schedule. When you look at who they're playing, you got Auburn, FSU, Miami, NC State, Oregon State. I mean, all teams that were pretty good last year, that's who they got. And, they're 11th right now in the ACC rankings. And by the way, this is their ACC debut, Logan.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because the Pac-12 is no more.
Yes. So it's going to be interesting to see how well they transfer over to the ACC. They closed out the Pac-12 with a losing record. So that just tells you everything you know about that. They are on their 14th consecutive losing conference record.
Whew.
So I got to tell you, Logan.
Hey, new beginnings, though. New beginnings.
Yeah, new beginnings, but could it still be the same old headache?
Could be.
More to find out. We got quarterback Fernando Mendoza, who took over in week 6 with 14 touchdowns and 10 interceptions last year. So not exactly the best of protecting the ball, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So I do expect there to be a QB race, and who I think he's going to be racing with. Oh, by the way, he also had four fumbles. That's like 14. So he was 14 touchdowns, but he had 14 turnovers. So
four fumbles. Yeah, I got you.
But then so he's going to be competing against quarterback Chandler Rogers. Who threw for 3,382 yards and 29 touchdowns at North Texas. Now, keep in mind it's North Texas, but still, 29 touchdowns at almost 3,400 yards. I think he's going to give Mendoza everything he asked for, and then much, much more. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins that QB race. They do have a new offensive coordinator in Matt Blush. He gets an improving O-line, which is good, to build around running back Jaden Ott, who led the Pac-12 in over 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. So even though Mendoza was kind of like biting the bull, their running back wasn't. So they always have a good run game. They have a good O-line. But who's going to lead this team, Logan? That's really kind of the biggest thing. And if I had to say there's a weakness in that team, it's just not knowing who the quarterback's going to be. And God knows if it's Mendoza, that's going to stay a weakness. Maybe old Rogers over there can channel his namesake, a la Aaron Rodgers, and see what he can do, right? So we'll see. There's more to come on that one, right? So wide receivers, Tron Griswell, after a great debut season and then you have Notre Dame transfer Tobias Merriweather, and then you have a couple other guys that came in there to be named later. This is new transfer guys, But I think that the wide receiver room looks pretty good. I don't know if it's as good as, let's say, NC State or a few others, but they have a decent wide receiving group. So you have a decent wide receiving group that's not a weakness on your team. The only weakness I'm seeing so far is just not really knowing who is going to be that quarterback. And God forbid if it's Mendoza. Take a look at the defense. They were led by FBS. They led the FBS with 28 takeaways and were vulnerable to the pass. So that's kind of that's going to be a rough thing right there when you can't defend the pass, that secondary.
Yep.
Thanks to inconsistent pass rush and subpar play in the secondary. They get I put right there. But anyway, go on. They gave up 33 points per game last year, Logan. So you got a team that can't stop the pass and gives up 33 points a game. and you got a quarterback last year that had 14 turnovers. None of that sounds good to me. They had the worst performance. Matter of fact, they had the worst performance in the Justin Wilcox era. So 14 consecutive losing seasons, a quarterback who turns the ball over as much as he scores, and you give up 33 points a game, and you have a weak secondary. Nothing sounds good for Justin Wilcox going into the ACC debut so far. I got to tell you, I think the defensive coordinator, Peter Sermon, has high expectations for outside linebackers David Reese and Xavier Carlton, and inside linebacker Cade Ulave, who was the Pac Defensive Freshman of the Year. So even though their secondary might be biting the bullet, they certainly have a good linebacking core to stand on. So we'll see what goes on there. They were second team All Pac-12 safety and Craig Woodson. So that's a good thing for the secondary. We'll get new faces to join him, and Marcus Harris and Jair Smith both look good in spring ball. So you do got some pieces coming in to help that secondary that wasn't good last year. But for all the weaknesses that I just mentioned a second ago, Logan, I don't know if the few strengths that they have are going to be enough in this ACC debut. And the more I think about it, and the more I read my notes, the more I'm thinking, man, it could be 6-6, or maybe even 5-7. So we'll see. But right now, I'm gonna give them 7-5. But don't be surprised if you have a little bit worse record than that.
Yeah, this is a team who's looking for their first winning season since 2019. So we're still looking for something this decade in the 20s. So will it be the year? I don't think so. I don't think so. Not this season, man. I think, like you said, the defense, that is if you look at it, I would say going to be the strong point, perhaps, because you have a lot of guys coming back from your team who you had. Like you said, they led the FBS in takeaways last year. Let's not sugarcoat that. That's impressive, but they still gave up a lot of points, though. When you give up, close to 33 points a game, but you still lead the nation in takeaways, you're doing something right, but you still have something you can fix. So good unit, I think, overall as a team. Offensively, it's going to be Jaden Ott and Mendoza, it seems. I think Rogers is going to challenge him because, like I said, Mendoza wasn't even the full-time starter last year. He came over about halfway through the season. Like I say, he did good he looked good, but he didn't look great. Touchdowns were there. Interceptions and fumbles were also there. So we'll see if he does get the starting nod, if he can really flourish under a full season as starter out there for the Golden Bears. I like the Tobias Merriweather pickup. I think that'll help out. But no, I'm expecting a heavy dose of Jaden Ott, a guy who, as we know, last year was just tremendous on the season. But I think that, for California, it's tough, man. It's tough. Like you said, they're going now into the ACC, and that provides just even more challenges for this football team. And when I look at who they're playing, it's a who's who, right? They're getting a gauntlet. You're facing Auburn, for God's sake. They're not even in your conference, but you're facing Auburn on September 7th. And then you've got San Diego State, Florida State, Miami, Pittsburgh, NC State. My God. And then you kind of get, I guess you could say, reprieve towards the latter half of the year. Teams like Oregon State, who's got, one of the best running backs in Ollie Gordon. You've got, teams like Syracuse and Stanford closing out the year, of course, with the SMU Mustangs. So it's going to be rough, man. I don't think they're going to be bottom of the barrel, like 2 wins or anything. But I expect pretty much on par with how they were last year, especially in a tougher conference in the ACC. It's going to be a rough going. Like I said, they'll have their moments, but like I said with teams before, my friend, this feels more so like on offense, it's a team that has good individual players, but haven't really gotten there yet as a unit. I think the defense, honestly, I think the defense is the opposite. I think the defense is solid in terms of if you can just get the points per game down. They've got some good players, as you said. They've got that good, interceptions, fumbles. They can get the ball loose. They can help your team out. But if the offense can pick it up, That's how this team will get better. Do I think they'll get their year one in the ACC? Not necessarily, but I don't think they're going to be, one of the worst teams in college football. But they still got some work to do, man. They still got some work to do, and we'll see what happens this upcoming season. Jay, appreciate you, my friend, coming on the show, talking about these California Golden Bears. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Guys, until next time, we'll talk to you again on